Welcome to this edition of Inside the Academy Studio.
Today's conversation will be about Woody Allen's Midnight in Paris. Midnight in Paris is an original film idea by Woody Allen, and it tells a story of a couple, Gil and Inez, played by Owen Wilson and Rachel McAdams, who are in Paris for a couple of reasons. One is to, holiday with Inez's parents, and one, Gil, who's a screenplay writer, effective Hollywood writer who's trying to work on his novel, has come to the city. He says he truly loves Paris for inspiration. And from there, he goes on a journey to old Paris, 1920s Paris, where he meets familiar literary and artistic figures and finds himself and parts of his life that he maybe did not like.
I think we should mention that it is magic or a slow fantasy.
It is, yeah. There is fantasy elements, especially when they go back to the 1920s and then even before that, the 1900s, and there's even a little scene of 1600s Paris.
So it literally goes back in time.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. We have Woody Allen here. Woody Allen is nominated for Best Screenplay and Best Picture. And it always seems every couple of years you bring up the issue, is this a Woody Allen comeback? Really, is it a comeback, or are we just surprised that he's that good and he's been that good for 30-odd years?
I'm more surprised at how many movies he makes. So I think, it is also surprising that he can make a consistently good movie every few years, but he makes like a movie or two every year.
Right.
So
you're amazed by the production.
Yeah, the production. Yeah.
But do you ever feel that he was ever gone?
Not really.
I know that maybe his last Academy success was in '94 with Bullets Over Broadway. But he's always been around. He's made good movies. I know people thought when Vicky Cristina Barcelona, Match Point, in the last 5-6 years.
At the very least, these movies have always been in contention for acting nominations.
Yeah.
So he's definitely. You can always consider he's an actor's director.
Right. Yeah.
So you can see that with all the performances.
Yeah, he creates memorable characters who obviously have faults, and he used to play a lot of them, and it seems like Owen Wilson's playing an extension of a Woody Allen. Woody Allen may have played him 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah,
somebody who's paranoid, loves that fantasy and just feels everything is real. Woody Allen is commonly known as using New York as a backdrop, but this time he goes to Paris.
Yeah.
What do you think of Paris as a backdrop?
He uses Paris well. I mean, sure, it may be a typical portrayal. I mean, it shows its beauty, its lights. It obviously doesn't go into the underbelly of what a city it is. He does look at what a beautiful city is, how magical it is.
And basically brings to light for maybe a lot of people that Paris was the realm of artistic adventure and ventures. Just a group of artists together. It's, I don't know, there's very few times you could say the 1960s in Britain when you had musical acts, there's very few times that all this artistic talent gets together in an area and they have so much interaction. So we have to bring up the 1920s. When he heads to the 1920s and he's now meeting Cole Porter, he's meeting Pablo Picasso, F. Scott Fitzgerald, his wife Zelda Fitzgerald. I know you have an anecdote about Zelda Fitzgerald.
The inspiration for the name of the Legend of Zelda video games.
Yeah.
Skyward Sword in stores now.
Yeah. And
promotional consideration.
And Gertrude Stein and Ernest Hemingway. So of those characters that were introduced, we're so familiar with them, but we may not be familiar with their, seeing them in lives.
Yeah.
Which ones were your favorites? Was there a particular favorite?
Can you say that? Can anybody be your favorite other than Ernest Hemingway?
Ernest Hemingway, played by Corey Stoll.
Yeah.
I
mean, because Ernest Hemingway, I think. He's written so much that I think sometimes it's hard to define one novel to him, one piece to him. So seeing him in this movie really puts a good idea of how Ernest Hemingway is.
Yeah.
Like, at least with F. Scott Fitzgerald, the Great Gatsby is all directly related to him. But Ernest Hemingway doesn't have that Great Gatsby. That's mandatory reading for high school students.
Right,
it's
he's got
a
For
good.
Whom the Bells Turn. Yeah, he's got a lot of post-war novels, but maybe one that's not instantly recognizable. Is there one of them that you would definitely want to hang out? Would it be Hemingway then?
I mean, because it really shows that because a lot like sure there might be a slight embellishment in the characterization,
Yeah.
but the facts that he does portray in this character are true. I mean, Hemingway was a world traveler.
Right.
He went to fought in the First World War.
Yeah.
He picked fights with like people on the street. He was an intense individual.
Right.
And Corey Stoll's performance really captured that.
It did. It definitely. I feel it was the strongest performance in a movie that had characters but really no standout leads. He was somebody who demanded attention whenever he was on screen. The screen stealer, the scene stealer. Sorry, he could steal the screen too. It's if you watching it at big screen. A lot of these people, this 1920s gathering, were part of the Lost Generation. I know everybody likes to kind of classify generations now, X, Y, Z, the greatest generation. Any comments on the Lost Generation and maybe their impact on society?
I mean, it's the Roaring '20s.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the era in the 20th century that will always be looked upon fondly,
Right.
because of how impactful it was on the rest of the decade. I mean, the rest of the century.
It was the generation that preceded the greatest generation, so they had fought their war, but then they had this 10-year period where a lot of inspiration, evolution, progress was made, and I think really the 20s, like the 60s, has become a generation or a decade that right away. You can say 3 or 4 things and you're talking about the 1920s.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All these characters are so familiar, but Woody Allen has created an original screenplay. Can you just talk about the challenge of using these familiar characters, but yet still creating a very original, interesting piece of work?
I think it's pretty similar to Alan Moore's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, except with real authors and artists. You put them together, you have them, you take their most prominent characteristics and have them play with each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We know we are familiar with a lot of them, especially, and once I mentioned that even the 1920s, they go back to the 1900s and the Belle Polk era. So there's Van Gogh there. There's a lot of guys like that. So these people are a thing, but you put them in that melting pot, and you just kind of have a lot of room to have interactions, play what these idiosyncrasies were, right? Zelda Fitzgerald being schizophrenic and crazy, S. John Scott Fitzgerald being moody, and Hemingway being brash, Stein being a closet, hard man's woman, so like precursor to a working girl now, right?
Okay.
But you didn't see that in there. Picasso being thing. There's just a lot of ample room to demonstrate these characters.
Yeah.
I want to mention, what do you think about the structure? I know I think everybody's instantly drawn to when Owen Wilson's character Gil goes back to the 1920s. But what do you think about the modern play? His girlfriend, the Michael Sheen, and the other couple, Carla Bruni, the first lady. How did that play for you?
It was they played it straight. I mean, it was kind of like wouldn't be out of place in like any other typical Woody Allen movie shot on the fly.
It was more just looking at Gil and how weird he was. There was no real independently interesting stories part there. It's just more how you look at Gil and what he's telling you, all these fascinating stories he's trying to tell you. But it just looks at them at straight, like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy, kind of thing.
Yeah, which I think, if leaving that part of the movie like that helps the part where they go back to the 1920s and even before that.
Yeah,
it really helps those characters seem much more defined.
Yeah, I know Woody Allen is known for, he likes to pay tribute. He is a master of appreciating previous cinema. He is a master of cinema. Mm-hmm. I know Gil in this character basically waxes nostalgic. He just loves. He feels that his era is not good, but the eras before him were great. What are your comments? Is he too waxing nostalgic, or is there the right balance. And is he right that Paris now is never going to be as good as a Paris in the 1920s?
I mean, obviously, and then obviously he is too nostalgic, and that's something that they do address at the end of the movie.
Right.
Because what I think the point is that you have to, especially when he, sorry to spoil the movie, when he does leave his fiance and pursue a relationship with a current Parisite. That's it. What is it called again?
Parisian.
Parisian. There we go. And where he tries to find what's good now, and while still recognizing what was good in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
Briefly talking about Marion Cotillard, who plays a fictional character.
Yes.
The muse of Picasso, of Hemingway, and becomes a muse of Gil, the Owen Wilson character. I think she does a good job. Cotillard has just that timeless look to her that she could be in the golden era of cinema in the 1950s and still be able to emote the sensibilities of that era or even the current era. So I think she does a good job.
Yeah, definitely. I think she plays a perfect foil off Owen Wilson.
Absolutely, and she's one of the couple actual French people in a movie set in Paris.
That's true as well.
So that's definitely there. We're nearing the end of this edition of Inside the Academy Studio, and like always, we like to end with questions. So the first question, as always, is your favorite moment.
I think probably my favorite moment is it's more of like a discussion when Owen Wilson's character Gil asks Ernest Hemingway to look at the book,
right?
And he says, "No, I'm not going to look at it." And he says, "Because I don't want to read I don't like to read anybody else's books."
Because if I like it, I'm going to hate you, and if I don't like it, you shouldn't care what I think, right?
Yeah, that's a good.
My favorite moment was when I think one of the first times. It was the second or third time they were like at this restaurant or canteen thing, and we get a surprise appearance by Adrian Brody as Salvador Dali, and he's just like pronouncing words weird and like elephant and stuff like that. It's pretty funny segment. We've been introduced to so many people before, and then we see Salvador Dali and his Spanish guys. And it's a good scene. Least favorite scene. My least favorite scenes are moments where when it's the soon-to-be father-in-law, and that whole detective side plot thing. I don't know. I did not enjoy the father-in-law's character. I know he was trying to be protective, but it's taking a bit too far. But I guess Woody Allen movies do take things far, but I did not enjoy that plot.
I think probably my least favorite moment is when Owen Wilson clearly spells out why total nostalgia is not a great thing when he does make that realization. I think that probably could have been done a little more subtly. Yeah. But I still did like the realization, nonetheless.
Right. Like always, we want to end with word association. So when we think, actually, my least favorite moment, I forgot. My least favorite.
Wait, didn't you? You said your
I did say my least. Okay, so word association.
Okay, don't repeat yourself.
When we think Midnight in Paris, what do we think?
All right, when I think Midnight in Paris, I think of art. That's maybe a cop-out, but it's all about art.
I think Lost, the Lost Generation. So that is the end of this week's Inside the Academy Studio.
Thank you.